Welcome everyone to Comics from the Multiverse, episode 445. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Matt.
Hey, what's up?
This is a DC Comics podcast. We get together and talk about the DC books we read this week. Coming up on today's show, we will be talking about Green Lantern Corps issue 1, Absolute Batman 5, Action Comics 1083, Batman and Robin 18, Aquaman 2, and Batman Dark Patterns issue 3. Plus, we've got a Patreon book. I'll be talking about American Vampire 1976, issue 5. So that is what's coming up on the show today. Yeah, and not much in the way of news, really. A couple of like tiny little things to mention, like Tom Taylor signed a new exclusive deal with DC, which is only news in the sense that things are staying the same. Because he already had an exclusive deal. He's just now going to be exclusive for more time. And then the other tiny tidbit is Jeff Lemire mentioned that Absolute Flash is an ongoing, which I think we assumed it was anyway, but just in case there was any questioning of that.
Yeah, I think so far the only one that's not an ongoing was Martian Manhunter.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's a mini, but I'm expecting Green Lantern and Flash to both be ongoing, so that news doesn't surprise me. But hey, yeah, so that was it. So I just threw them in quickly there because literally that's it. Just 2 bullet points to mention. Yeah, how was your week, Matt?
Pretty uneventful. Although had a rough day one of the days, so that was cool. Contemplating quitting, but then I remember I have a mortgage.
So yeah, Matt literally had me wait 5 minutes before we started because he had to rush and pay his mortgage. It's like he'd forgotten, and it was like, oh shit, the deadline's like tomorrow.
No, I was supposed to pay it this morning, but I was like, I'll pay it when I go up, and then I didn't go up until it was time to record. So but yes.
Yes, all.
I'm being responsible.
$400 of your monthly mortgage.
Oh, Pete, I wish.
No, that's too low? Is that ridiculous?
Oh, that's very low.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but that said, we bought at the right time, so it's not nearly as crazy as others.
I've never looked at it. I mean, my expectation is that a mortgage is supposed to be cheaper than rent.
Yes, and ours is. Ours for our house is cheaper than my brother could get for a studio apartment now.
Yes.
Yes. So, but yes, anyways.
And I'm operating under the assumption that £500 for rent, which is kind of normal here now, translates. I suppose that would translate more to like $700 in rent now that I think about it. But
again, I wish. when I first moved out 15 years ago, to me and my wife's first apartment, it was about $700, and that was cheap. So, yeah.
Yeah, you're living in Sin City though.
Yeah, my brother's over here doing work, so excuse any noise that might come through. But he goes, "Oh, a mortgage, I'll never know." And the sad reality is, the younger part of our generation, like we're lucky. Me and my wife, we're able to buy it at the right time.
Yeah, I'm glad you specified me and my wife, because I'm not lucky. I'm not. I'm never going to have a mortgage.
No, yeah, and my brother and even her younger sister, like there's just generations that aren't going to be able to, just because of some tomfoolery and shenanigans that are going on. So, but yes.
Yeah. So yeah, the depressing start to the show this week, everyone. Hopefully you're all prepped for it. We'll try and cheer things up with some comics. I mean, my week was okay, I guess. Yeah. Connor was sick this week, for anyone who's interested.
So your voodoo doll worked.
Yeah, he even went to the hospital last weekend. He was dehydrated. He had a bad case of the flu or something. It was.
Yeah, he posted he almost died and then didn't give any follow up.
Yeah. Oh, he's been a bit hyperbolic. He didn't literally almost die, but he did get put on a drip for the dehydration that the flu was causing him.
This is also the guy that broke his wrist fighting off a dog attack that turned out to be like a beagle that barked at him. Yes. So I'm not surprised.
Yes, fighting off is a bit generous. He tripped backwards onto the road in fear of said little dog.
But yeah, I asked him how he was doing, and he never responded, so I just assumed he died.
He died on his way back to his home planet.
Yeah, it's like Poochie.
Yeah, that's so. Yeah, we'll just get into things. We got the Kindle ranking, formerly known as the Comicsology Top 10. Yeah, books are mixed. What do you think's number one right now on the Kindle rankings?
All right, I'm gonna do, because of the cheat code that we've been doing so often, I'm gonna try to nail 1, 2, and 3.
Okay,
all right, so
go.
Number 1, Absolute Batman.
That is correct.
Number 2, X-Men 11.
That is incorrect.
Oh man, that can be call my shot and immediately swing and miss.
I don't think you'll guess 2 and 3, frankly, but you can try.
I will take that challenge. Let me guess. I'm gonna throw out Bug Wars.
I mean, you're thinking outside the box. I appreciate that. But
that's
no,
out there then, huh?
Not Bug Wars. Not Bug Wars.
Is it Green Lantern?
Nope.
Okay, well then just give me 2. I'm not good at this.
2 is issue 1 of One World Under Doom, a new Marvel event, I assume, or miniseries.
That's not it. Oh, there it is. I skimmed right past it.
You do this every time, Matt. They sort by the amount of people who've pulled it on League of Comic Geeks, and because it's an issue 1, it's always low.
No, this one is in the top 8, so it's in 6 on League of Comic Geeks. I just didn't see it because there's so many words that I just skimmed past it. Right?
There's too many words. My brain couldn't comprehend it.
Yes.
And then number 3 is Transformers.
Oh, okay. You know what? Good for Daniel Warren Johnson. I think that's still him.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. 4 is X-Men.
There we go.
5 is Green Lantern Corps. Which was a good first showing of that, I think.
Yeah.
6 is Magic. 7 is Amazing Spider-Man. 8 is Bug Wars, which I was like, what is Bug Wars? But it's Jason Aaron, which is why you know what it is.
Oh, right. I didn't even know that's what Jason Aaron. I just saw number 1 from Image.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah, it's Jason Aaron.
And flew it out. What is Bug Wars?
Yeah, number 9 is Aquaman. Good for Aquaman. Jeremy Adams maybe pulling in some people these days. And then 10 is actually DC versus Vampires World War V, the one shot that came out this week. Looking further down for more DC stuff, number 12 is Action Comics, so that's a little bit further down. Maybe these action superstars things aren't doing that hot necessarily.
Running its course.
And then Batman and Robin clocks in at 15, Batman Dark Patterns at 16. And that's pretty much it for all the major. I mean, Black Lightning's out as well. That's down at like 19, the looks of it. No, sorry, 24, that's on. Counting my rows. Yeah, I mean, it's a reasonable mix between Marvel and DC in the top 10. 2 big publisher books. We had both an Image and a... what publisher does Transformers?
IDW, right?
Is it? Oh yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, so we had an IDW book as well. Yeah, not too bad for as far as the spread goes. But yeah, Absolute Batman still reigning supreme. If anything, it's the 2 Bat books that are down at 15 and 16. I'm surprised at being further down.
Actually, but... Transformers is Image. So
is it? Oh,
yeah, IDW no longer has it. Yeah.
Fair enough. Presumably that's been the case at least since the start of this current run, maybe even before that. So yeah, fair enough. That is the Kindle rankings for the week, and we can get on to the books. So, as I click around here, because I'm clicking some things before I get to that page, because I want to click something else first. So stalling, and Firefox has been a dick. All right.
This is where I'm going to let my cat in, because she is banging at the door.
Oh, you can let your cat in. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. You could do that.
Come on, stop being a pest. Come on.
Oh, Matt. We're all.
You gotta stay in here now.
He's so dangerously close to the ash crack sticking out there on camera. It didn't quite, but it was dangerously close.
What did I miss?
Your ash crack almost being on camera.
Oh, good thing it's not. You gotta start charging. That's
dangerously close is all I'm saying.
Oof.
Dangerously close.
Please put a ginormous sensor down there, David.
So they think it's there.
Yeah, that'd be so funny.
All right, Green Lantern Corps issue 1. Morgan Hampton and Jeremy Adams writing with Fernando Pasarin on the art. So yeah, we get a second Green Lantern book again after. Well, yeah, but I mean, I guess I know because when Morrison was doing the Green Lantern, that was the only Green Lantern book for a while, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's got to be since who was it? Humphrey's doing Green Lanterns, right?
Yeah, Green Lanterns and Green Lantern Corps side by side was probably the last time we had two ongoing Green Lantern books. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Ah, so
Yeah,
well, that's a technically War Journal would count. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's more of a maxi, right? So this is an ongoing. So we're gonna play with a little bit of loose with terminology here.
I guess that never felt like it was going to be around forever, which is why it never felt like, oh, we've got two ongoing Green Lantern books. But no, we're back with this, and it does fit firmly into what Green Lantern is set up with the spectrum being all out of whack. In fact, that's very much the focus of this book. And it follows some of the characters, of course, that aren't in the main Green Lantern book right now. So Hal and Kyle are in that, so they're off doing stuff. This book, of course, John kind of takes the lead, but there's some important roles for some of the others. Obviously, Kelly and his construct sister are also around. Jessica's been given kind of like the Guardian's old job of being the one who actually like assigns things and like keeps track of whatnot.
What's Salak up to? No offense to Jess, but that's like his thing, you know? So I don't know what he's up to.
I don't know. He died.
I'm saying.
I'm just glad Jess has got a place to be in this new Green Lantern book. Joe's there as well, actually. Joe's got an interesting little moment with John early on where she's trying to, basically say, hey, you're going through a lot right now. It's okay if you take a break and maybe talk about everything that's happened to you if you need to talk. And John, of course, just kind of scurries away as quickly as possible, and it leaves her. Probably one of my favorite moments of art in the book actually is her face just feeling a little bit deflated and being like, he needs help and he's not accepting it, and this is rough. As Guy standing behind her trying to feed an alien baby with a Green Lantern ball.
Oh my god! So that entire sequence, if you look, it reminded me of Abed delivering the baby. Right?
Oh, because Guy's doing every panel on that page, Guy's in the background dealing with this baby.
Yeah, so it's it's a regular kind of looks like an alien made out of some kind of fluid, and as the panel goes, it gets bigger, like it's bloating, and then it explodes, and everybody's covered in the stuff. And Guy goes and looks at the chair, and in the next panel, he's now holding a baby, and it's just something very little in the background that's very funny.
Yeah, a liquid baby specifically.
Yes, a liquid baby that he's now feeding with a Green Lantern construct bottle.
Yes. It's just, it's got a bit of personality, there's a bit of tone. And that's actually what I liked about when it introduced Jess next up. Because Captain is exactly her role. She's the core captain is what they're calling her. And she's got the stress of having to deal with all this stuff. And Simon comes in to try and give her a bit of a pep talk and talk her up. But yeah, so basically they all have a meeting, they talk about what's going on. And the big things here is that there's a situation on Tamaran, and they're going to send out John with someone to help because there's a giant fear construct that's formed there, and they need help. Right? It's that they're very scared there. This construct's formed out of nowhere, like we've been seeing because of the spectrum being all wonky, and out of nowhere. The buddy cop he's been sent with in a Green Lantern uniform is Sinestro, who is back here on the Corps, and of course he's like, hey, I've mastered fear, so who better to go and deal with a fear construct than me?
This smug guy, just the way that Pasarin drew him.
He's so
with
smug.
That smug look on his face. Yeah. Now, I'd be lying if, they brought up Tamarin and it said, we're going to put you with a partner. And what they had done in Green Lantern, right? They'd introduced Superboy and the Time Bandit. So I'm thinking, we're going to expand the core a little bit. Tamarin, it's got to be Starfire. So when I turned the page, I was, Sinestro. That makes much more sense. But
yeah, I wasn't expecting Starfire. Even with the mention of Tamaran, I wasn't expecting Starfire. We do ever get the Queen, though we get Blackfire.
We get her sister, Commander.
Yeah. She's dealing with this giant construct, which is actually one of their gods, or it's in the form of one of their gods, is this giant yellow construct. And it basically turns out to be, after they talk with her a little bit, and one of the running gags here is that Blackstar kind of ends up having... Sorry, Blackfire ends up... There's a character called Blackstar, though, right?
There is. Yeah, there's Darkstar. Darkstar is the main one that's in Green Lantern. So, yes.
This is not my fault. All these names are all blended together. Anyway.
He's the vampire guy that seemed to be the main villain.
Yes.
Yes.
Blackfire gets the hots for John because he's commanding, he's doing whatever. The main thing here, though, is that the Tamaranian who is causing this construct, right? Her fear of being judged by her god is so strong that it's created this giant construct of the god, and it's causing chaos. And Sinestro finds her, recognizes this, and talks her down, right? And in the background, we see that John's got a giant Green Lantern straitjacket on the yellow construct, which I thought was a funny touch. But he's fighting, he's helping Blackfire. This is all going on in the background, but it's left to Sinestro, who's not exactly someone with a bedside manner, to talk to this Tamaranian woman who is terrified and causing this. And he basically talks about how he mastered fear, and even brings up at one point that he also imbued the rage as well, because he was a Red Lantern there for like 5 minutes. And he basically says, hey, you overcome fear with willpower, and the fact that you have so much willpower that your fear can manifest this, you can bring this down. And sure enough, like, she does. And then he pretty much immediately turns to John Stewart and says, she has incredible willpower, she just overcame that fear. If there was ever a candidate. And it kind of sets up and introduces this idea here that the Green Lantern rings aren't just flying out to people like they used to. They're picking who is getting to join the Green Lantern Corps. And John offers her the ring. And it's a fun little moment, and we've got a Tamaranian Green Lantern now. So I thought this was a neat way to introduce a new character. I kind of dig her Green Lantern outfit that appears.
I like because she has the braid, right? And so that Tamaranian hair really sticks out against the green. So yeah, it looks cool.
Yeah, no, I like the white bits in the outfit. It's just because I really dig like some of the variations that Kyle's had on his outfit back when they were experimenting with it a little bit more. I remember getting really pissed because when they showed like all the potential concepts they had for Jessica back when she was first being introduced, some of the alternatives they had were more like Kyle's old suit, and I'm like, oh damn, I'd have loved that color scheme. Yeah,
I do love the idea that we can get variants now too, because the Guardians aren't there to impose that kind of order.
Yeah.
So we get a little bit more expression in the Corps, which I always like, because like guys sleeveless vest, right? It's kind of stupid, but it is unique. No one else wears that, and even John's here. John's suit too is much its own thing. It's not a traditional Green Lantern.
Yeah, well, he never had the same as everyone else, although it has changed a little bit again here for this book, because you notice like two stripes. It's very military looking actually now, with those two stripes instead of the one, because normally it has the one big green bit at the top, and then the symbols kind of at the bottom of it, and then the rest is black, barring the boots or whatever. And now it's the same kind of broad idea, but instead of just being a big green block at the top of his suit, it's like two big stripes that are going up to his shoulders.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's interesting.
I like it.
Yeah, no, I kind of dug this. I kind of like that this is maybe a new sort of B-tier Green Lantern we're going to have sticking around, at least in this book. But yeah, so they're talking about the stuff that's going on in the main book a little bit. They go back to base, and they're talking about Sorrow. I love that Jess calls him the emo lantern. I laughed at that. That was a good joke. But and John's just like, okay, I need to be on this then, right, Jess? You're sending me out there to deal with this. And she's like, no. We've got other people doing that. Probably referencing Hal and co.
Right.
But we have another problem. Thanagar. There's something going on. And because I'm sending you to Thanagar, you need a Thanagar liaison. Or new Thanagar, because the original Thanagar's dead at this point. And there's just that moment before the final page where he's like, oh, please don't. Please no. Please don't let it be. And then, of course, Hawkwoman is there in the last page. Yeah. So he's got his ex as his buddy for next. So issue 1, he gets Sinestro. Issue 2, he gets his ex-girlfriend.
This has felt more like a cop procedural than any Green Lantern book I can remember.
I like it. It feels different.
Yeah. No, for sure. I mean, just looking at the background, like, it looks like a cop precinct, right? Nuoa?
Yes, it does.
Kind of everybody's bustling around. It kind of reminded me of Brooklyn Nine-Nine at parts, with the way that it was laid out and stuff. So, yeah, to have him being this put upon kind of guy That's very much in there with the cop
I
procedural
think
as well.
this is the perfect format for the second Green Lantern book for a couple reasons. Obviously, they've picked John Stewart to be the lead, and that's cool. But this format lets all these other Green Lanterns still be a constant part of it. The humor you can get out of the cop precinct kind of setting that they're going for is really smart. I also obviously the one question getting into this book is Jeremy Adams was listed as a co-writer, whether that's because he's co-writing in the traditional sense or he's he's plotting and then the other writer's scripting. But I have to say, I felt no downgrade here. Like Morgan Hampton, she, whether she's just writing the dialogue or she's co-writing and like helping with the plot as well, I'm not sure. But I felt no downgrade from the main Green Lantern book. If anything, this was just completely on par with at least this month's issue of Green Lantern. Arguably better than some past months we've had. There was no. I never came out of this feeling, the writing's a little bit lesser because Adams isn't solely writing that. If anything, it's as strong, if not a little bit stronger. So, no complaints on that front.
No, and it feels like it has its own identity already through one issue.
It does. It feels in the world. It feels in the same world as the Green Lantern book because they're talking about a lot of the same problems, and they're going to use presumably the Spectrum going wonky as a lot of the seeds for a lot of the plots they do for the next foreseeable future. But it does feel like it's doing its own thing in terms of how it's tackling. And I think this issue was really good at setting up the status quo of this Green Lantern precinct, like headquarters that they're all dealing with. We like a lot of the characters that are involved, like Jess and Guy and whoever. And then it did a good thing where the actual little mission they went on, even though it only got like half the issue because they had to set up everything else in the first half, I presume issue 2 will be a lot more, the full issue will be devoted to whatever's going on in Thanagar. But they did a nice little thing where, I actually cared about the character they ended up helping. And it's kind of cool that she's been added to the ranks, and I'm curious if they've got plans for her where no, she'll be like a proper recurring character and maybe grow into being like a cool lantern over the course of this book.
Did you read Green Lantern Corps before it tied into Sinestro Corps War when it was doing something very similar back then? I don't know if you were reading at that point.
I want to say I did, but it's been so long I don't remember.
Yeah, you would get an A plot and a B plot because there were so many different characters, right? You had this Radiant Green Lantern who was teamed up with a Thanagarian, right? So they were like this odd couple. You had Guy that would pop in there from time to time. You had Kyle and Sornik, who was, from Korugar, turns out to be Sinestro's daughter, right? And so you had all these plots swirling around, kind of everything that Hal wasn't doing. Right, because Hal was the sole focus of that Green Lantern book, and this feels very reminiscent of that. This feels like it has more focus.
Yeah, no, I'm digging it. I think this is a cool, because I kind of went into this with muted expectations, not because I had any reasons to think it wasn't going to be great, but just because I'm like, it's the second book, it might not be great, and if it's not great, that's fine. I'll keep reading the main one, and it's okay. But
yeah,
I know I came out of it feeling quite happy. And then art-wise, which we've not really talked on yet. I mean, Pasarin's a very, very dependable house style DC artist. It's not going to often compete for my favorite art of the week necessarily, but I have very little to complain about. It's very expressive. There's a lot of good detail in the faces. Really handles because some of those moments where Sinestro's talking to the Thanagarian here, or sorry, the Tamaranian. Sorry, too many planets we're talking about.
Yeah.
He's talking to the Tamaranian and he's talking her down. There's a great moment where Blackfire kind of comes in and gets mad at her. It's like, hey, this is your fault. You did this to us. And Sinestro just turns with an angry look in his face and says, "Woman," and starts telling off Blackfire for talking down to her. Like that art there is great. Like the eyebrows up, the teeth are gritting at her. It's good stuff.
Yeah. And it, Pasarin worked with Adams, I think, a lot on Flash, right?
That sounds right, yeah.
So they probably have a pretty good working relationship, so that helps. Even if, this is just a launching, for the book, and then Adams will go off, and this will be Morgan Hampton's main book. I do think that comfortability working with Adams, it plays out really well here through the art.
I do wonder, is Adams only going to be a co-writer for an arc, maybe, and then Hampton will be left on her own to, and I've not read anything else she's done, so I'm pleasantly.
Yeah. The credit that comes up in the solicit on the Comic Geeks was Cyborg. So we
Really?
read like
Okay.
2 issues of that new Cyborg book. But yeah, I mean, if this is going to be more of this, then I'm fine with that, because I feel like
Do you know what? I hate to say it because I don't want to just write off a character, but like I've disliked every Cyborg book I've tried to read, and it's at a point now where it's just the character's just like he's fine on a team. He's fine on a team, he is, but like maybe just like no writers found the way to like make a solo Cyborg story that compelling.
Yeah. But yeah, here, if whatever, Hampton worked on, it felt true to Green Lantern. Every character felt right. Down to Ellie, who is probably the newest, right?
Well, either Ellie.
Construct.
Yeah, I mean, I guess well, I mean, the character she's based on probably isn't the newest. It's probably Teen Lantern who's the newest.
Yeah.
But then again, we have this new character now who is now the newest. As your cat is very upset about something.
Yes, now I'm going to let her out, because you know how cats.
Yes, I do know how cats are. Yeah. So Vexaru is this new character's name, which is probably going to take a while to stick. I imagine, if I was to guess, we're probably going to shorten the name to just Vex, because that's easier than saying Vexaru. So she's Vex. We're going to call her Vex.
Yeah. But you need that apostrophe, that glottal stop in the Tamaranian name, like Coriander and Commander and every other Tamaranian that we've met. So, but yeah, Lantern Vex.
Yeah, Vex sounds nice. It's catchy.
Yeah, Blackfire called her Vexaru the Zealot. So I wonder if there's maybe a little bit of a dark side we're not seeing, and that's where the fear of the god and whatever comes from. And I'm excited to see where that goes.
I mean, that could be a thing. It could also mirror like Jessica's, because Jessica's whole story about overcoming the agoraphobia and all that. I wonder if this is like, oh, she's always lived this fearful life because she thinks the gods will smite her. Maybe she'll this whole story about her having her willpower. She'll find her inner strength. Maybe she'll feel like, hey, maybe I don't need to buy into or believe in that stuff as much as I did, or at least be scared of it because I have my own strength. And in that weird way, Sinestro did a good thing today, and that's.
And that's the thing, is that Sinestro let his fear overtake him, and that led to him becoming a dictator, right? And so now he has, he's back on this side. He has that power. So I do like seeing the complex, nature of Sinestro at play here.
Honestly, at this point, I think he should just stay as a Green Lantern. Obviously, he was a Yellow Lantern for a long time. He had the Sinestro Corps. That was a whole big thing. It was a great story. It was a great thing to do. And obviously it kind of retconned like who Sinestro was when they sort of introduced all those ideas rather than what he was originally back in the Silver Age. But I think at this point he's far more compelling as being a Green Lantern again, who has this edge to him, who obviously goes a little bit darker than the other characters because of who he is. But I think him working with the other Lanterns and doing good things despite his like sort of tough demeanor is, I think, more interesting to me at this point than him just being leader of the Yellow Lantern Corps anymore.
I don't like mustache twirling Sinestro. It doesn't feel like, again, we've dug so deep on him over the last 20 years that there's so much more complexity to him. I do like when he shows up as a good guy.
Obviously not every villain needs to have shades of grey and be redeemable, but I do think, like John's run on Green Lantern was obviously great. And it kind of peaked at Blackest Night, or some people might prefer earlier parts, but like that's where I think it crescendoed to. I think it's after Blackest Nights where it started to slide down into like, oh, we're just kind of doing more stuff now, rather than it feeling. But the one thing that I really liked in that new 52 chunk was this idea that he had to kind of forgive Sinestro or accept that Sinestro could be good again. And I think that's just the direction that I prefer to see for Sinestro, is have him be. Yeah. I don't even know if anti-hero is the right word, because he's a part of the core, but like, just...
I'm liking to think of him as that cop that has an edge, right?
Yeah.
Like, I've never seen the Shield, but maybe like early Shield, Vince Mackey type, he's trying to do good.
I mean, Vic Mackey was always corrupt and always out for himself, but I kind of get what you're going for.
Yeah. So, he kind of has this edge. If he has to, he'll plant the evidence to make sure the bad guy gets locked away, where John Stewart won't do that. He has too much honor. So, I like that he's there, though, because what else are we going to do with Sinestro at this point?
Oh yeah, this is far more interesting, I think, to do with Sinestro than just about anything else.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but yeah, no, so it's pretty solid.
Yeah, hopefully they stick to that. But no, yeah, I'm very happy with this issue 1. I'm excited to read a second Green Lantern book every month, which is cool. All right, Matt, what are you giving Green Lantern Corps issue 1?
I'm gonna give this a straight 8.
I'm happy to go 8.5. I'm pleasantly surprised, just because I guess I feel like I was braced for like mediocre, and I was like, oh no, it's actually pretty good. I'm actually kind of into it. So cool. Absolute Batman issue 5. Scott Snyder writing with Nick Dragotta on the art. So Batman had made that deal with Black Mask, with Sionis, and this issue kind of picks up with him coming to meet Sionis for his payment of said deal. And as he's on his way, like, Alfred's kind of monitoring the situation and watching it, and he's, obviously it's his narration, of course, as it's always been in this book, and he talks about how he's like, oh, I think Bruce wants to like almost like goad one of like the gang into like breaking the deal, so he gets to just go back to being Batman and beating him up. It's like he's begging for it almost. And I thought, yeah, that's interesting. I kind of like that. Obviously, the big thing here in the flashbacks is we're kind of like dealing with the aftermath of the zoo incident, the death of his father, and Bruce getting his shot for the bats, and obviously Leslie has that ridiculous like foreshadowing line. Well, you know, this will be the end of you and bats. There'll be no more with you and bats. You don't have to worry about bats ever again. But the main thing being that Jim Gordon comes to him at his dad's funeral and says, hey, I wanted to let you know, Bruce, that they're going to tear down the zoo, so you'll never have to see it. You'll never have to be reminded of what happened. And later on, when it comes back to the flashback, he's like, no, I don't want it to be torn down. I want it to be a symbol of something. I want it to shine. And they kind of reference in the present day story when we see Martha and Gordon that every year, like the zoo light gets turned on, but it's not getting turned on this year for whatever reason, because all the bad things have been happening.
Because the party crashers. Yeah.
So it kind of like, so as soon as they said like the light, I'm like, well, wait a minute, we've not had a bat signal yet. I feel like we're going somewhere with this. So yeah, the whole conceit of this issue basically is Batman waits for Sionis on this rooftop. Alfred's watching in the distance, and Sionis comes out and says, all right, let's make you rich. And he's like, I sent you the $200 million this morning. And Bruce is like, I know, I already used it for something, which impresses Black Mask. He's like, what did you use it for? And it turns out what Batman did, and we get a big full page reveal after some build up, is that he went to this big light that's in the zoo where this massacre happened, and he placed all the money on it in a pile in the shape of his bat symbol. And we get the full page of him standing kind of triumphant. Well, it's not even triumphantly, he's kind of hunched over, but it's very like the bat signal's in the sky above the city, and so honestly, what's the weirdest thing about this is that when the money starts burning, which is a really cool visual, because you see the symbol and the signal start to like fade away as the money's like on fire. It really made me think of this town deserves a better class of criminal from The Dark Knight, because this is what the Joker did. He burned all the money from the criminals. I kind of liked it in a weird way. Batman's doing the same thing here to say, hey, you can't buy it. Because we talked about how at the end of that issue, there's legitimate reasons why Batman might cave and take the deal in this version of the world, because he still has a mum to lose, and his mum's been kind of, because she's this public figure, she's speaking out against crime, she's kind of at risk. She's got a bit of a target on her in a way that maybe other people don't. But no, he stands up here and says, I don't need money, I don't need computers or planes or cars, all I need is Batman. And I think what I like about that, as far as like just talking about the idea of Batman as a whole, is that I truly believe that regular universe Batman would say the exact same thing. Yes, he has all those things. Yes, he makes use of them. It's handy. But whenever his money's stripped away from him, he always puts on the suit. He always goes and bees Batman. That's all he really needs.
Right. It's his mindset. It's his symbol. Right. And then that's what I liked about the Nolan trilogy, is that's the crux of it, is you have to become more. Right. And when you turn it into the symbol here, right, it's in the sky, even if it's just briefly, right? But that's all he needs is that reminder, and it's the memorial light, right, for his dad, and the whole reason he does this. So that was a nice little piece.
Yeah, it's like, even as a kid, he had this idea of a light to like give everyone an idea of the good people who were lost there. Like, the good thing, his dad was one of the good parts of Gotham, so he wants a light to represent and remind everyone there's something good here. The idea that he turns that into a big bat signal as he's building the reputation and the myth of Batman for Gotham, because this is early days for this Batman, so he's kind of like, the city's starting to learn, and sort of that theatricality is starting to maybe build up and like build the mythos.
Well, and it's literally that whole stupid argument that we always get of like, what Batman has all that money, but Bruce Wayne doesn't do anything positive with it, and right, so he literally just set it on fire, right? Like, because the heat of the light and whatnot.
Yeah. Also, I'm pretty sure Bruce Wayne in the regular universe is constantly funding charity programs and all sorts of shit.
I hate that. Every time it comes up, it's just a lazy argument. Like, look, we can talk hate on Batman. I will gladly do that. However, come with a better argument. All right, like that one is just like, ugh, you have nothing good to say. Yeah,
so, I mean, they don't focus on it too much, but it's always like he references it constantly that he's at a charity thing because he's he's funded this thing or he's done that. He's built an orphanage there. He's constantly doing shit.
Yep. But I love that here that he uses that money to make a symbol of Batman, right? And it's that big chunky, the axe thing that's on his chest, right? And yeah, it looks really cool in the bat as the bat signal. Yeah.
I mean, it's that big ugly bat symbol that he's got, but it's the absolute bat symbol, so it's fine.
Yeah.
So they all attack him, of course, and the one party animal member that had his hand cut off by Batman comes up for revenge and tackles him, and Batman just sticks all those spikes that he's got and he's like cape out, and so this guy just gets impaled to the point where he's stuck on Batman's back as Batman's still fighting other people, which was very funny to me. I had a good kick out of that.
I had to reread that panel, right? Because he says, I'm stuck, and I thought that was Batman saying, get him off of me, right? But no, it's get me off of him. Again, Snyder has a way to be darkly funny.
Yeah, so, no, I had a chuckle out of that. Like Black Mask snipers start firing, but of course Alfred takes a few of them out as well. But they hit him with some nets. Batman is pinned down. He does grab Roman for a second, which is important because later he reveals it was a tracker that he's put on him. But yeah, he kind of loses this fight. Like they pin him down in this really like sort of tough net that's like cutting into him. And this is when we see the bat signal burning, or the symbol in the signal burning away because it's on fire. And the big thing here is he kicks Batman off the building, and Batman's like cape turns into like a parachute, but it's so badly like damaged at this point that it barely works. Is Sionis like broadcast to the city afterwards that he's basically saying, hey, everyone, like, I used to kill pigs on a farm with the bolt gun thing, and it was what it was, but every so often a pig would die in a state of euphoria. Like, they would have a moment of happiness as they were being killed. And he basically explains that it's because, sometimes he would hit the part of the brain that deals with pleasure, and it would just flood the pig with pleasure before they die, but it only happened in the pigs that didn't, like, struggle, didn't like, tense up. They accepted what was happening. And he basically says, hey, all the corrupt leaders of this country are letting it burn. This city's, like, a shithole. Let's just enjoy it as it's dying. And he basically just puts out like a bunch of weapons and money and stuff. It's basically encouraging more citizens to kind of join his gang and say, hey, come be with us and enjoy the wild west that the city's becoming while it dies. Like, let's enjoy the moment of death kind of thing. Of course, the other big thing that happens is that as Batman sort of is getting away, Barbara Gordon, to remind everyone who's a police officer in this universe, runs him over with her car, not intentionally necessarily. He kind of just lands in front of her, and she gets out, pulls out her gun, and his cowl's even fallen off at this point, but he's got his head turned away as he's like sort of like crawling into like a manhole. He's clearly very hurt. Like, and this is something the lettering's done, where the speech bubbles are very craggy around his words. But she's like, hey, stop or I will shoot. And he just says, then do it. Go on. Like, he's just defeated right now. and she chooses not to. She calls in and says she's not seen anything. So that first sign that maybe his, like, you know, Batman Gordon relationship is going to actually be with Barbara in this universe is interesting. Like, you know, it's a bit of a change from normal.
Well, and that makes sense considering that Gordon has more of a relationship with Commissioner Gordon, who's now Mayor Gordon, right?
Yeah.
It has more of a relationship with his mom, right? So just keeping it generational as well, you know, checks out. So, yeah, I can't get over in the next pages though how Alfred looks, because he looks damn near like Ra's al Ghul in some of these.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, he's kind of had that look to him ever since it started because of the mustache and whatnot.
No, yeah, but just this one here, which is right above the, you know, bats are highly infectious. I was like, oh my God, that's Ross. I was like, wait, no, that's Alfred, right? And it was just like, you know, some of these decisions that are coming, you know, you can't be by accident, right? So we're playing with the Batman mythos ever more here.
Yeah, Alfred basically says he's never going to help Bruce again because he wanted this deal to go through. He thought this deal was the right thing. Yeah. He even stuck around when his employer said it's time to leave to help him. And he's like, look, I'm never helping you again. You balls this up. You could have had this. You could have used that money to be even better and bigger and a better version of what you're trying to be. And, you know, Bruce is sitting there with, like, so many little, like, bandages and stitches all over him. He's like, truly just been beat up and destroyed. So the cliffhanger, though, is that some of these civilians who have, like, picked up these random crates of masks and weapons are near where Gordon and Martha are. And Gordon apparently he at least thinks he's about to lose the election. He thinks that his election is done for. So, now, I thought this was another great issue of this. I think you get the big sort of, you know, glory moment of Batman being defiant and saying, I don't need your money, I'm going to burn it because it means nothing to me, I'm the goddamn Batman, effectively, with that full page spread. But then he gets beat down and beaten. It's very reminiscent to me of RoboCop. Like, do you know when, like, RoboCop gets beat up by Ed 209 and then the whole cop force shows up to shoot him? And it's just Murphy who shows up to help him get away. That's what, like, Barbara showing up and letting him leave kind of reminded me of, is, like, you know, Batman being beat and bruised and, like, barely able to stand and just kind of getting away, and, like, her deciding that, you know, he's not the bad guy here, even if he's technically working outside the law. And, you know, I'm curious to see how that relationship evolves from here.
Because his cowl gets left behind, right?
Yes.
So I'm wondering if that's a little bit of, you know, that we also get here when Alfred's talking to him. This is, you know, bats are highly infectious. So I wonder if she's going to be the first person to come to hit the bat cause, right? You're going to have all these other party animals running around, but you're going to have, I mean, you know, Babs.
I don't know if she's going to physically, because I'm kind of at this point, I think it's more likely she'll be the Jim Gordon of of this, in terms of, like, she'll be the cop who's, like, actually helping him and whatnot. But if she does end up putting on a bat suit and calling herself Batgirl or Batwoman, I would wonder if, like, she literally picks up this cowl and like fixes it and fits it to her own head and, like, actually uses this cowl that he's left behind to start her outfit, or maybe just wears it once in a sort of defiant sort of thing.
That's what I'm thinking. Like, as the idea of Batman spreads, right? The bat highly effects. Because I feel like it's also Alfred, where Alfred can talk about all this. Like, I'm not going to help you, but he's invested now.
Oh, he's going involved. To. Ain't no way Alfred's not coming back to help him at some point.
Because there's that thing where he says, you know, I was a field medic. I could help you, but I'm not going to because you don't listen. You know. So there was that there too, where I'm like, oh, okay, he's playing the tough card here. He'll be back.
Yeah. So just like Bruce wasn't done with bats after the rabies shot back in the flashback. I don't think Barbara or Alfred are done with the idea of Batman after this issue, which is cool. I always love seeing how the mythos spreads throughout the city and, like, people become inspired and want to, like, be a part of it, and especially since, I think, in contrast to what a lot of villains in early Batman stories usually do, the villain in this case is literally trying to inspire the opposite by actually appealing to hey, everyone, let's just become gang members because this world's screwed up. So just give in to the chaos and be bad. The idea that Batman's going to be the counterforce to that and trying to, no, don't give in to that. Fight for what this city can be, for the good parts of this city. I think is a good, two sides of that ideological battle. So
yeah, because there's the whole Black Mask argument is if you can't beat him, join him, right? So you're gonna die anyways. Why not here have some fun while you're at it? Also, I do like the look of the last three. It kind of is reminiscent of the Terrible Trio, which is another Batman. People that wear masks and whatnot.
I wouldn't be surprised if this is meant to be this universe's version of those three characters.
Yeah. I mean, they're a little bit different, right? Because that's usually what the Vulture, the Fox, and the what's the last one? The Shark.
I get what you think of it though. If anything, the mask made me think of the movie You're Next. That's what I was flashing to.
Well, so I've had reoccurring bad dreams about a stag skull like this. So that one was a little bit scary, So that gave me cause. But yeah, there's the bird looking one right next to him. I was like, oh my god, they're like the Terrible Trio. This is kind of cool. But to circle back a little bit on the whole idea of Batman, I do like that this kind of continues Snyder's take on Batman, because that's what he's always been interested in, right? From the time that he did the first story with Dick as Batman, right? As what does it mean to be Batman? And then throughout the New 52 run and whatever, he is always preoccupied with the whole idea and the spread of what Batman means to the city and to the world as a whole. So I'm glad that it's continuing here in the Absolute Universe.
And then Dragotta's art, of course, is extremely solid and adds a lot to it. I think there's a lot of panels, particularly like Black Mask, when there's a panel where he's like pointing at Batman that really stuck out to me as just being really kind of cool and imposing. Don't get me wrong, he's obviously very skinny and kind of like a scrawny, like slimy villain as opposed to like a big tough imposing one, but it kind of works.
He's the physical opposite of Bruce, right? Because Bruce is this big, intimidating, hulking figure, and Black Mask is not. He's that slender, big bulbous head, kind of alien-esque, like a gray alien. But yeah, very creepy. Also, Dragotta's art here as Batman's getting beat down too. The small panels and stuff. It's very visceral, despite you don't really see anything, right?
Yeah.
So very, very good on him for that one.
Yeah, no, I really liked that fight scene. It was really good. So, all right, what are you giving Absolute Batman?
I'm giving this one 8.5.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I'm almost tempted to bump it up, but I think I'll stay at the 8.5. So there you go. Action Comics 1083. John Ridley writing with Inaki Miranda on the art. So continuing this Superman All-Stars gimmick they've got going. This is issue 2 of 3 of Ridley's story. And I'm like, I like kind of things that he was poking at in the last issue, and I still kind of like what he's poking at in this issue to a point. There's actually one thing in here that I really like, because one of the complaints I had a while ago is that I really like when Atomic Skull had kind of like turned into a good guy, and it felt like they just threw it away at some point because whatever writer just wanted him to be a villain again. And this issue kind of actually tried to explain why he became a villain again. Because it turns out to be the same thing that's caused Major Disaster to do something bad, is that it's basically, as they explain it later, they have been selling off parts of their life force to villains who are selling it to rich people so they can keep living. But one of the side effects is that it's robbing them of all hope, and that's why when he goes to talk to Atomic Skull in this, he's very kind of like, oh, I'll never be anything better than this, Mr. Kent. I'll always be nothing but a criminal, a C-lister. I'll never be important. Like, he's very defeatist, and that's kind of why he became a villain again. And it's the same reason why Major Disaster tried to rob a bank, is because they basically get robbed of all hope, which is an interesting thing for a villain in Superman to do, especially to ex-villains who were trying to be better, and like Superman realizing that he has to stand up for these villains that were trying to reform. All these ideas are cool. I do think, though, by the time we get to the second half of the issue and we're in like a different dimension with Scorch and we're doing intergang stuff, I was like, okay, this feels like it's kind of jumping the shark a little. I was enjoying the serious part of this story, and now it feels a bit too comic booky for my liking.
Yeah, when we get to Bruno Mannheim in the pocket dimension and he's talking about, telomeres off of chromosomes, and I was like, oh, okay. I was fine with Clark and Superman just hunting down this, and you could even just have the lack of hope that nobody believes in them wanting to change, right? And it's like this whole, Ridley could attack that whole thing about people that come out of prison, and right, and there's this whole the whole world's against them, right? Because of this mark on their list. And it's, society has already determined that you have no value. And that's depressive. So it leads you back to a cycle. That's where I thought he was going. And then we got to Intergang and went, oh, this is still comic books. So
yeah.
But I do like the intent though, because it there is something that connects with Superman wanting to do what's best for these villains, right? That you're not always what people say you are. And having that come through Clark Kent, I think was pretty smart.
Yeah, I think the other thing as well, obviously, is that it starts off from the cliffhanger from last issue, which was that some mugger comes up and like knocks Clark out. And obviously the question is, wait, how did they do that? He's Superman. And there's a whole conversation with Bruce at the start where he's trying to go through the possibilities. Oh, someone had a red sun or solar energy or whatever, maybe magic. And also the art here I thought was a little distracting from Tim's, because he draws Clark so bulky in his underwear that I'm like, this is like beefcake material for those who are into it, which is fine, but it was a little distracting. I did kind of feel like though that cliffhanger really didn't matter that much, because once he gets back into just going to interview people in the case, it felt like, well, it doesn't really matter that someone knocked him out. Yeah.
Well, I don't know, because it does show him and more as Clark, and he's all banged up, and it kind of gets that he's this dogged reporter, right? Because he has scars on his face from this type of stuff, and it shows that he's not quitting just because he was, attacked. So I do kind of like that. But yeah, the whole thing with maybe they had a pocket red sun thing and this, that, and the other. Maybe it's a little bit too much time is spent to that, but I do like the visual of a beat up Clark.
I mean, I get it. I guess I know. I feel like he would always never quit anyway. It's not like I need to be convinced of that. I guess if it was something where a character in the story, felt more encouraged to talk to him, because they can see in his face that he's determined, because he's he got beat up because of this story, but he's still pursuing it. If a character actually seemed to change their mind because that look in his face convinced them to open up, I could see the value in what you just said. I just don't know if it ever actually does anything in the story other than just being a visual that you liked.
Yeah. No, I definitely get that too. Again, that's part of the back half that kind of falls, because then we get away after he talks to Atomic Skull, we get to the whole Intergang shenanigans. Yeah. And that's what it becomes in the back half.
And I like part of it. I like the part of okay, these villains have had their hopes stolen from them, and that's why they're becoming villains again. I like that because I kind of appreciated explaining why Atomic Skull went bad. That was also a nice little just paying attention to some I mean, let's be honest, anything Atomic Skull did in some of those stories that I'm talking about, and these are a good few years old now, they're relatively minor in terms of continuity, but this shows that Ridley was like, okay, either he remembers this because it bothered him that he just went bad again, or he looked through recent Superman stories and said, okay, what villains could I bring into this story that makes sense, and he found Atomic Skull. But either way, it feels like a good awareness of what recent continuity has been.
Yeah, because regardless of it makes sense in the story, but it feels rewarding that you're paying attention, right? Because of that. So it's just like a little extra piece.
Yeah, so I really liked that part. I really did. I will say they constantly bring up real names of people. So they constantly say Major Disaster's real name, which I get logically it makes sense that Clark would be saying that real name as he's talking to people, but I don't know his real name. So every time he said it, I was like, wait, who's he talking about? Oh, he's talking about Major Disaster. And then they start talking about someone else, and I'm like, oh, this Max Boykin, and I'm like you're throwing around a lot of names, and I get it, technically this is right, but the problem is that when you're reading a monthly comic book and there's all these dense real names that I've not memorized, it is hard to kind of keep up with some of the conversations a little bit. I have to stop and think about who he's talking about.
Yeah, well, and it also feel like the fact that the only guy to die in the bank robbery was the tie to Intergang, right? Was this, which definitely makes it feel more like Major Disaster had a little bit more say in this So I wonder if that's going to be a piece, because constantly bringing up this Max Boykin character.
Well, no, because
too,
they explained this. So basically, what was happening is that he was like a parole officer who was like looking for these prisoners and convincing them to sell off their enzymes or whatever it was. So I don't think it's that they were like just because he was talking to this guy, he was like making more villainous choices to begin with. I don't think that's what they were implying with that.
No, he was, but no, I feel like Major Disaster went to that bank specifically because that's where that guy was.
Oh,
right?
okay. I mean, yeah, maybe that may be
so
the case, yeah.
so it's going to show like, yes, he did something villainous and somebody died, but he doesn't feel that guilty because the ends justify the means here. He wasn't robbing the bank just to rob the bank, right? There was an ulterior motive to him.
Oh yeah, I could see that. The revenge element of it.
Yeah, that you stole my hope, so now I'm going to steal your life. That kind of stuff. Yeah, I sold it, but you know what you were doing. You exploited me.
Well, yeah, to be fair, they didn't sell their hope. The hope thing's a side effect of what they sold.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is the piece of it. But symbolically, they sold their hope for this. So
yeah, and the whole thing is that Superman goes to Scorch, who Clark interviewed last issue, and she ends up knowing all this, and she takes him to the pocket dimension, and we get Bruno Mannheim, who I'm like, yep, he's an intergang dude. That's what he looks like. And Scorch tries to burn him at one point. It's a whole thing. But it flashes back to the conversation with Batman, and Batman basically suggested, hey, like, is there anyone who, have you been around any magic users? And he's like, yeah, I've been around Scorch. And he's like, so you can trust her. It's a whole thing. So basically Superman's able to convince her to stop fighting him. Like, she's kind of switchy sides. But the cliffhanger, of course, well, not cliffhanger, but all these intergang soldiers show up. Superman takes them all out. It's a whole thing. And then the cliffhanger is presumably these aliens that Mannheim's been selling this immortality stuff to show up. And that's the cliffhanger, is these guys showing up. I don't know if I know any of these characters off the top of my head.
No, one of them looks like Abe Sapien from Hellboy, and the other one looks like a Minotaur.
Well, he looks like Abe Sapien, but he's wearing like a pharaoh hat from Egypt.
Yeah.
That's how I'd describe him.
Yeah. I was talking more about the guy on the left, too, that looks like Abe in the suit.
Oh, I
right? Because Abe's amphibious. But that guy also looks like Abe. So, yeah, I don't know who these guys are, but they seem to be the ones, at the heart of this. So, that's all that matters.
And I'd forgotten about this last page, which is why I said the cliffhanger was the other bit before I corrected myself, because this was by far the least interesting part, is like, who's buying this stuff. Like, no, I'm interested in the effects on the criminals who are trying to be good, but like they've had their hope robbed from them. That's the part, and that feels like the part where Ridley's got something to say, and he's hitting at some really cool ideas, but it's almost like the fact that it has to be an action comic book gets in the way of it a little bit, which is a shame. Yeah. I know the book's called Action Comics, but that doesn't have to be taken so literal all the time. Right.
No, absolutely.
So, that's what it is. All right. And I mentioned the art a little bit briefly. That art's okay. I do find it to be a little bit in the, I don't know, like,
it's Ed McGuinness-esque.
I can see that.
Yeah, the muscles are overly done. The proportions seem off. Like, Bruno Mannheim looks like he's played by Danny DeVito. So
I could see that. Yeah, just sometimes, like, the jawlines are a bit too big or whatever. There's just a little bit too much of that going on. So, yeah. Otherwise, I don't really have any sort of great, like, big things to say about it, really. Like, I wouldn't say any, like, sequences stood out to me as being either for good or bad reasons, for that matter. So, I guess there's one nice touch when Clark's waking up at the start of the book and Batman's there. There's a little moment where, like, the screen that's in the foreground kind of, like, makes, like, new panels that splits up Clark, and that seems like a sort of intentional little meta touch where it's like, hey, this is this is diegetic comic panels. So, I don't know.
I'm looking at these. No, yeah. No, I get what you're saying.
Okay, right. Okay, we given Action Comics.
It's a straight 7.
I think I gotta go like 6. Because the parts I really like and what it's getting at, but by the end I was just kind of bored by like where the plot was actually going. So it's definitely a mixed bag for me. But I do like what Ridley's really trying to like talk about and say with the book. I think your comparison to like prisoners who are trying to be good when they get released, but like everyone's against them, is a really good comparison.
Yeah.
So, all right. Batman and Robin, issue 18, legacy number 84. Philip Kennedy Johnson writing with Miguel Medonca and Javier Fernandez on the art.
And one page of who else? Dia Domenico.
Was it?
Gia Domenico, yeah.
Do you know what? It said that on Leah Comic Geeks, but his name wasn't on the cover, which I use to fact check sometimes when I think they may be wrong. But that makes sense if it's only one page.
I only know that because I looked at the title page because I was counting up to see how split the art was. Because on the title page, it has Fernandez is the majority of them. It's like 1 through 7, 10 to 11, 15, 18 to 19. And Medonca has those other, but has the other numbers, except for Carmine Di Giandomenico, who's the artist for page 14. Which, again, checks out with the story that they're telling, that Giandomenico is playing those, when Bruce was in London.
Yeah, he's
all
in the
those years ago.
flashbacks, yeah.
Yeah, so I would say that the art is very well balanced, right? Like, Fernandez and Medonca are both very complimentary. So, like, you don't get caught up too much on the art differences.
No, to be fair to it, I didn't really feel the changes. I'm sure if I'm looking for the changes, I can probably see them, but I did not feel them as I was reading the book. So,
because I definitely feel like Fernandez is doing the Bruce and Red Hood stuff, and then Medonca's doing the Damien and the Doctor, or the Inspector, not the Doctor.
Yeah,
Lautrec.
Lautrec.
And so it is split very, very well.
Yeah, so Batman and Red Hood are, dealing with this gang war that's erupted because, Memento's kind of inspired it. So, they're fighting. We get a lot of action scenes with them, but really the meat of it is the conversation that they're having as they're fighting the bad guys. Because the topic of this issue is very much this idea of what it means to be a Robin and working for Batman, and specifically for Damian, like, does he have the choice to just quit if he wants to? And one of the things that Jason gets into later on, credit to Johnson for making me like a Jason issue of a book, but he talks about how, did Damian have a Harvey night? And Batman's like, what are you talking about? What's a Harvey night? And he's like, it's something that all the Robins and Batgirls have had at least once. It's an incident where it makes us think maybe we should quit. And obviously most of us didn't. We all stuck around. But like, and we know Damien's had that. Damien, the girl, right? Who got hurt. Like that was his Harvey night. And Batman's just learning about this for the first time, and like it's actually a really fascinating conversation, which plays nicely as Damien's talking to Lautrec, and Lautrec's basically posing a lot of these questions in her own way to Damien about, hey, do you like working with Batman? Do you feel like you're a kid, you should be off doing kid things, this, that, the other.
The fact that Bruce is taken so aback by the concept of the Harvey night is so funny to me. He's like, what do you mean you guys putting your lives in danger makes you feel like you can't do this? Like, he's just so disconnected from everything because he's Batman.
You've questioned the calling. I also like that Jason kind of at one point says, so, you investigated this memento back in London. You never told us about that. Well, you probably told Dick. Dick's your favorite. a little, yeah. That is middle child syndrome for sure. Yeah,
I
got a little kick out of that.
Yeah,
and he didn't tell Damien because Damien basically learns it from Lautrec. We don't hear all of what he hears from her, but at the end of the book, when Damien walks in and says, "Hey, if she's not figured out that old Jack or young Jack, whatever your name was, grew up to be Batman, she's going to at some point," and it kind of feels like Damien's thrown in his face that he's withheld from him. And he's figured a lot of this out. So yeah, I mean, the art's gorgeous here early on during all the SWAT team stuff, because they get into the building with the gang war, and the SWAT team come in, and Batman does a whole scary, this is my city, leave, like, no one needs to get killed here today. And there's a whole bit here actually where he's like, hey, I recognize the accent of that SWAT guy. You're new here, you've got a Metropolis accent. Everything you say got a little sing-song sound to it. This is my city. blah blah blah. So fun Batman stuff.
I love that Philip Kennedy Johnson is putting that kind of stuff in there, right? Because we don't know how a Metropolis accent is supposed to sound, but to him, there's like a sing-songiness to it. And just, for Batman to explain that, I love those little details.
Who's got a sing-song accent? I'm trying to think of like a place in the US that's got a sing-songy.
I don't know, but like, I'm trying to think because, right, that like Metropolis is this effectively New York, right? So I'm trying to think. New York ones aren't usually sing-songy.
No. Well, this is the weird thing. Like, I know, like, I think both Gotham and Metropolis sometimes get assigned to New York. I think it makes more sense for Gotham, at least from the perspective of, like, if you think of 70s, 80s New York and how grungy it was. But also because I kind of think of Bloodhaven as New Jersey. So that kind of fits in my mind.
Mean, in canon, Gotham's supposed to be in New Jersey, right? Because New York still effectively exists, right?
Right.
And also canonically, Metropolis is supposed to be in Delaware, which is weird.
That is weird, yeah.
But yeah, anyways, Metropolis always seems to me like a mix of Chicago and New York.
Isn't Delaware on the West Coast?
No, Delaware's East Coast.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
What am I thinking of?
Delaware? The West Coast has three states. You got Washington. Maybe that's what you're confusing.
No, but like, I mean, I don't mean necessarily on the coast, but like just another layer in. What's in that side?
Yeah, Idaho, Utah, Nevada, Arizona.
Maybe I'm thinking of Utah. Maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah. No, definitely Delaware is not Utah.
Fair enough.
Yes. Anyways,
Metropolis, Delaware. They keep that to themselves. They never bring that up at all.
They do anymore. Like we don't talk about that as much.
That's actually a good question. What state is Gotham in? They never talk about this.
They never do. So, but yeah, canonically it's supposed to be New Jersey. That's what it was back in the Silver Age. Anyways, again, I look this stuff up like I look up the different teams for in the DC. Sure. I got to know. But anyways,
it was a fun bit. Like regardless, it was a fun little bit.
Yeah. But yeah, him saying sing-songy and him being like, you don't belong here. This is above your level.
Minnesota, that's sing-songy.
Yeah, don't you know? Yeah.
Minnesota, maybe like a New Orleans accent's a bit sing-songy.
Yeah.
Very different sing-songy, but...
Yeah, but I mean, Metropolis is a melting pot, too. So, they also have the aliens that end up there, right? That was a whole thing in different books. So...
Anyway, Damien's working with Lautrec, looking at Scarecrow's lab, and they basically deduced that someone was using Scarecrow's lab, but not necessarily Scarecrow himself. There's also a monkey there that's been experimented on that Damien takes to instantly and says he's got the same, or she's got the same symptoms as the victims at the previous location from before, from the drug. And Lautrec's like, wait, should you be like, that monkey could be contagious. Like, who knows what that's been like? Did you not see how 28 days later started? And he's like, it's fine. So yeah, these two scenes kind of go back and forward. So thematically, there's a lot of ties with the discussion of Damien, the discussion of being a Robin, what it means to be that, all that kind of stuff. But also some reveals about the backstory. So it finally confirms in this issue that their mentor, the detective that was training them back in England, was basically put away for the crimes of being Memento. Now, Batman always knew it wasn't really him, of course. In fact, so did she. In fact, she even says her motivation for catching Memento here is to clear the name of the man that trained her. But, he was basically crazy after his encounter with Memento. He was raving, and because his apartment was filled of all these things that only the killer could have, presumably planted there by the real Memento, he got locked away and died soon after. So yeah, but that said though, Batman's still been pretty convinced that the real Memento has been dead, at least up until last issue. So that makes me think that there is more to the backstory where he thinks he sees the real Memento die. Yeah. So maybe we'll get more of that as well.
And on that page, there's a hint of Jack the Ripper here where it talks about the Whitechapel murders. So I'm wondering if there's going to be this thing where like this Memento is something that pops up every so often.
It's like
this mania kind of thing.
It's like that character from the X-Files who goes into hibernation, but every 33 years wakes up to kill like 5 people, kind of thing. Yeah. So that's what I'm feeling, that there's going to be ties there, because Bruce knows, because he saw Memento and the inspector, the professor,
what's his name? Atticus Bly. He saw them together, right? So unless it was this big elaborate thing, they're not the same.
Yeah.
So whoever it is had enough power also to make him go crazy and to get him brought up on these charges.
I mean, we've been seeing that Batman's been having hallucinations.
Yeah.
So maybe, yeah, like, you know, by getting close to Memento, he was seeing all this stuff. Whether it's because Memento has that ability, or it's just this drug that he's, you know, also been concocting with Scarecrow's lab recently. The Black Orchid or whatever it was.
Yeah, it's Gravedigger's Poppy.
Gravedigger's Poppy, that's what it was. There you go. So yeah, all that stuff was super interesting, because that's the thing, like, the book's so much about Batman and Robin's relationship in both plots that it kind of like took a while, but when it got to that stuff and Lautrec started talking about it, I'm like, okay, this is actually quite exciting advancements in this backstory. So that's really cool. There is like a unknown person at the lab who like throws the shelving with all the stuff on it onto Lautrec, so she gets a little bit hurt. Damian gets her out, of course, but well, Batman is basically like, he's still under the effects of whatever Memento's done to him or given him, as someone's drilling or sawing or whatever that is, and he's so scared that he's about to lose Jason, right? And he has even this hallucination moment where he sees like a giant Memento holding Jason's dead body, but notably it's like the dead body of like when he died as Robin. So he's worried that he's going to lose Jason again. In fact, one of the details that I really liked after that is that when Jason's talking to Batman, he points out that, hey, my Harvey night isn't what you think it is. It's not the night Joker killed me. It was actually a random night where like someone who like was fallen to their death, who didn't die, we actually saved them, but the look of fear in their face just stuck with me so much that I almost quit at that point. And maybe if I had quit, maybe what happened later wouldn't have happened. And of course we have the big thing here where Damian goes to call Batman and he hears some of this conversation, and he hears the worst part where it sounds like Batman saying that he's not very, even though he specifically says he's obviously amazing as Robin, but that's a secret. It's somehow this doctor seems to think he's amazing, which is suspicious because his test scores suck. So either he's working with the League of Assassins and he's working for the Al Ghuls, or there's something strange, there's a motive here. And that's the part that Damian hears. And then he doesn't hear the part afterwards where Batman says, Damian stands to be the best of us. Of course, that's the part Damian doesn't hear.
Misses out on, yeah. Very, very sitcom-y.
Yes, right? Yes.
But yeah, the whole thing is like, his test scores are mid. Like, that's part of his cover, right? But that's not the part that he's hearing. Is he's like, oh yeah, my dad thinks I suck, and there's no way this guy would show any interest in me otherwise, you know?
Yeah. But then he also says, but part of the reason why Batman insists that he's Robin is that, you know, when Damian came to Gotham, he came to find Batman for whatever reason at the time. Like, he thinks that the only connection he has to Damian is him being Robin and him being Batman. He says if he gives up the mask, I'll lose him. And which is funny because obviously in the previous issues, like, the whole thing is Damian's been trying to connect with Thomas Wayne's like history and like what he's been doing. Right. So yeah, the issue ends with Damian, one, grilling Batman a little bit for some of his past, but mainly to say that he's going to sign up for this program to work with the Doctor, Dr. Bashir. Bashir's a character on Deep Space Nine, but it's very close, which is why I said that. And then says, okay, we're going to help catch Memento, but after that, I'm not going to be Robin anymore. But I'm going to go do what Thomas Wayne did. And it's almost like he's, even if he's not doing it intentionally, he's saying, hey, I'm going to go do what my grandfather did, because I see more value in that at this point than what you're making me do as Batman. Now, obviously, I suspect he'll change his mind at the end of this arc for one reason or the other, but...
Although every Robin has this moment, too, where they want to be more than just Batman and Robin, right?
That's true, yeah.
So this is his moment for that he's like, well, I can do more good, but for now, right, I feel like he'll stay as Robin, but there is that part where he'll want to embrace the Wayne aspect of him, right? Because that's something that gets lost up there, is that the fight is always about Robin versus being an Al Ghul. It's never about Damian being a Wayne, which he also is.
Well, yeah,
so
which this makes it very fresh, this story, I think.
Yeah. So the fact that he wants to embrace his grandfather's legacy on Bruce's side, you know, and not be this crime fighter, to be someone that actually helps. I do like that wrinkle.
Yeah. I think that's very good. You know, as much as I had some misgivings in issue 1 of this arc, I think that it's really developed into something really good. It's been a really new exploration of Damian and his relationship to Bruce. And I think the way that this has to end, not so much the main plot with Memento, that I don't know where that's going exactly, but I feel like, you know, this has to be like Batman or Bruce has to open up to him and like kind of admit what he's scared of, or like admit some details that he's never told him before. This feels it's almost like, because Damien's actually his son, he's not getting to like ignore some things that he did with the others. Like with the others, they all had these Harvey nights and they got through them. But because Damien's his son, he has to actually kind of step up and like get over his usual like boundaries.
He has to learn to be a dad and not a leader.
Yes. Yeah. Even though he's effectively been a father to almost all the other ones. But that's...
Right. But he was viewing more of those as partnerships, right? That's why he's kind of sidetracked by the Harvey Nights. Or not sidetracked, he's taken aback by them. But what Damien is, he's taking it a little bit more seriously because that is, you know, his blood son. You know, so he's not thinking of him as a partner first. So again, Philip Kennedy Johnson's very good at these interpersonal relationships. You know, we've seen that through his action run and then in War Journal. Right.
It's a shame it's not higher in the Kindle rankings. I suspect that maybe unless you're Batman, Superman, Detective, or Action, or Wonder Woman, you know, these long running books that are really high in the numbers, I feel like people weren't thinking, oh, a new arc or a new run starts at issue 14, I'm going to hop in here. I feel like the numbers so low, they feel like, oh well, if it was worth reading, it'd have been worth reading from the start, kind of thing. So I do wonder if that hurt it a little bit, but like this is better than anything Williamson was doing, for sure. It's not even a question to me. So
but yeah, this feels like it could also fit in Detective Comics, right? And with
of course it could.
The spirit of that book, right? But we happen to have Tom Taylor telling a detective story in there too. So, you know, but yeah,
I mean, almost every like other Bat book that isn't Batman or Detective could easily just be an arc in either Batman or Detective, typically. But but Batman sells well, so we got like 4 books. So so,
of course.
Here we are. All right, what were you rating Batman and Robin 18?
I'm gonna give this a 9. I really enjoyed this one.
Whoa, very high. I don't know if I'm going to go quite that high, but I did really like it, and I did like the exploration of Bruce and Damien's relationship. I am going to go with... Yeah, 8.5. This is my third 8.5, but damn, if I'm not feeling it this week across these books. Sorry, Action. You're the the exception so far. All right. Aquaman issue 2, Jeremy Adams writing with John Timms on the art. So issue 1 of this ended with the big reveal that Atlantis had disappeared and then Aquaman disappeared through some sort of portal seemingly centered around an Omega symbol, i.e. possibly relating to Darkseid or even the Absolute Universe or something. Now, I think it's a bit murkier after this issue exactly what's going on here, because it doesn't seem like we've went to the Absolute Universe, certainly. And it also, the possibility that this Omega symbol was there long before anything to do with the Absolute Universe existed seems to be the case, because it feels like, I don't know, I don't even know where to theorize with this really, but effectively this is a story where Aquaman wakes up having gone through this portal, and he's in some barren land, which very quickly he's able to figure out, oh, this used to be the bottom of an ocean wherever I'm standing. This used to be whatever this Earth or this world, this planet's water was. But and he acknowledges, hey, that symbol that I just went through is kind of important, but I can't really dwell on that right now. I'll think about that later. So this doesn't... I think at the end of issue 1, I thought it was instantly going to start to feel like a tie-in to the larger Absolute storyline, but I don't think it does. Not yet, anyway. It feels like it's, okay, that's there, but we're putting that to the side because he has to deal with these various monsters that are attacking him. And they basically refer to Aquaman as water because he has water in him. And what we discover over the course of this issue, after he fights them with controlling the mud, because the mud has water in it, because he's got the aquakinesis powers now, or sorry, hydrokinesis is the correct word, even though it's all made up anyway, but it doesn't really matter. is that basically there's a villain here who I really thought it was going to be like a Poison Ivy-esque villain because of all the greenery in the lair.
But you're not far off, but keep going.
Yeah. So yeah, Jenny Greenteeth is the villain here, and it turns out that she has sucked this world dry of water to keep growing everything that she wants to grow, and she basically has her henchmen like find her like people and creatures to just suck the water out of, because, you know, as you often hear, we're like 70% water or whatever the number is. So that's what they've been doing. She wraps Aquaman up in her veins and tries to suck the water out of him, but because he's still got his powers, he's able to, like, you know, resist. She sort of puts him down into this sort of root-like area where there's a big bloodbath, and he uses the blood to help him get out. And he also runs into another character, and this is where I'm talking about how it feels like this portal to this other world is maybe really old, because the character he runs into is one of the older rulers of Atlantis. It's Arion, or
Arion. Yeah.
Arion, yeah, there you go. So he's
descended from, right? Because Arion is the first king of Atlantis.
So yeah, so he like helps him, but yeah, he's been here for a long time. He's got a big ginger beard. But yeah, Aquaman can feel the blood because there's water in blood, and he uses that to help them get out of the veins. And yeah, old Jenny Greenteeth's not very happy about this and starts yelling, and you know, and Aquaman comes up with a tidal wave of blood, you know, on his side to try and help fight her.
And he yells, "Jenny Greenteeth, it's time to die!" And you're like, "Oh my god, Aquaman's got off the deep end."
Oh, he's
Pun
pissed.
intended.
Yeah, he's pissed. He wants to find where's Atlantis, and we don't even know if Atlantis came here. He might have went somewhere different than Atlantis, for all we know.
So as I was going to try to say, and then the garbage man came on, as you know, timely as ever. I had to mute my mic, so it wasn't too bad. So it says when he goes through the Omega Gate, he says it looks like the Omega symbol or something like it. So maybe that was always just a red herring. Maybe it's just a gate that happens to resemble the Omega, and this is something else, you know, because you know, we'll get to there.
I don't know, because the end of the issue is that when Aquaman defeats Jenny Greenteeth and basically takes away the infection of, because is this still technically Jenny Greenteeth when he rips out that away from her? Because there's like a real woman who's been possessed in there.
Yeah, so that's what we're going, because they call him the new god, right?
Yeah, that's what I was getting to, where I do think it's related to Darkseid, at least in some way, because they use that word. They say, "You're the new god."
Yeah, so I'm wondering if this has to do with, like, because, right, Darkseid and High Father and all that stuff that we tend to go with the new gods, that's the fourth world.
Yes.
I'm wondering if this has more to do with, like, the third world, right? And that kind of vibe, because, you know, we'd seen the first world with, I always forget the name, but it's everything that Philip Kennedy Johnson has done in action and in War Journal.
Oh, and Elgrin and all that.
Olgrin, right? Yeah. And he was the first god, right? I'm wondering if this is kind of playing with that, because there's a lot of elements that are familiar. Like you have these Grindy Lows and Jenny Greenteeth, and they all seem very reminiscent of like Granny Goodness and the Furies and this type of stuff. So I'm wondering if that's the kind of thing that we're playing with, the thematic elements.
You think this is
make
like
up the new gods?
This is a bygone thing from the second world or third world or first world, one of them.
Something along those lines, and that's why the Omega symbol is whatever, you know, was associated with Darkseid.
But this Omega symbol predates Darkseid.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
I mean, I can see it going that path. This is definitely a weird story for like the first arc of a new Aquaman book.
Oh, for sure. That said, Jenny Greenteeth is a folklore character across the world. She's in a bunch of different cultures, mostly in England. That's like a bog witch or a swamp witch that is essentially to keep kids from drowning. It's like, don't go over there. That's where Jenny Greenteeth is. And it's like a boogeyman figure. So when we see him pull this darkness out of that lady, it seems like this is a type of dark spirit, right? That has taken over this world.
Because Arion seems to know her, and it's like, oh, you're free now, lady. Like, he seems to know who this is. So maybe we'll get more context for who this woman is that was possessed by Greenteeth next issue. Yeah, very, very strange art. I mean, I'm not enjoying it. Like, I think the art's really cool, and Aquaman using like his water powers on both the mud and then the blood later on did make for some fun visuals, but it's definitely like a weird pivot, and it feels like we're doing like, yeah, we've got Aquaman as a character here, but we're doing a lot of other things relative to what's going on. So yeah, it seems like he's going to end up help rebuilding this world, or maybe we'll have some refugees coming back to Atlantis with us when the time comes. But
yeah,
curious,
right? So when he created that blood tidal wave, Arion says that it's the dark tide, right? Or right, that's what he calls it. The dark tide crashed upon the enemies. So and that Arthur here has fulfilled a prophecy of this world.
Yes.
Right. And so that's why they call him the new god. So yeah, they're definitely playing with a lot of fantasy aspects that I was not guessing, from that first issue. Like we had Aquaman versus Kaiju, and now we have Aquaman versus boogeymen and stuff. So I'm very, very curious to see where this goes.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested. It's not like grabbing me in the same way that his Green Lantern is, just purely because I have no idea where the concepts are going yet, and I'm not like Green Lantern's got such a solid footing in terms of like, okay, this is the cast, the supporting cast, and all that. But this is taking Aquaman and just throwing him into like a new place with new characters, and like a lot of that like kind of structure around him is kind of missing right now, which I don't hate necessarily, just because I've not really seen that done with Aquaman that much. I feel like it happens too often with Batman and Superman, so I get really sick of it. Here, I'm like, okay, this is kind of interesting. So I don't know, we'll see. But I wouldn't say I love the story yet. I'm definitely, I'm open and optimistic, but I'm still kind of waiting to see what the hook is of this story for me.
Yeah, well, you know how I am. Anytime you start wrapping up comic book with folklore stuff, I'm there. So once I saw Jenny Greenteeth, I was like, oh, this rings a bell, right? And when you said it's like a Poison Ivy figure, and yeah, when you start reading up about Jenny Greenteeth, that's kind of what she represents. It's like this fear of the natural world. Like, don't stray too far from civilization.
Yeah. Just to mention though, Aquaman does mention in his dialogue or narration that all of this like plant life that she's controlling is all underwater plant life usually.
Right.
He mentions that, so it's all like seaweed and other stuff. I mean, obviously in the comic art, it just looks like a bunch of bushes and stuff to me. But
yeah. But yeah, it's all things that's also creating water, right? So it's almost that's how she's using it to control but yeah. Again, I'm very excited to see where this goes, because again, not getting involved with New Gods like I thought. And like we're doing like folklore, and it seems like we're gonna play with some other, because right, if Arion was a sorcerer from Atlantis, I feel like we'll be doing like mythological kind of stuff. And then when you see the blurb for the next time, it says like pirates, mermaids, and what's the last one?
The Lady of the
Pirates
Lake.
And the Lady of the Lake, right? And we're getting to Arthurian legend right there. Yeah.
Which doesn't
count me very much in.
Yeah, that doesn't thrill me, to be honest. That is actively making me go, oh, I'll look forward to the second arc. I'll get through this one, and I'll be excited for what arc 2 is going to be.
That's where I was like, this is where I look forward to Connor, because he gets down with this stuff like I do.
It's definitely not conceptually something that excites me all that much, but I'll see what he does with it. I mean, I didn't think it was a hard or tough read, certainly, but still enjoyable enough to get through, even if it's not hitting exactly my sweet spots. So, all right, what are you giving Aquaman?
I'm going to give this I'll give it an 8. I quite liked it.
It's a 7 for me. That's good, but it's not scratching my itches specifically. So cool. Batman Dark Patterns issue 3. Dan Waters writing with Hayden Sherman on the art. So yeah, we get a lot of background in this issue as to what's going on here. This could almost be the end of the first arc in some ways. There's still stuff for them to do, of course, but it feels like a lot gets answered here about the Wounded Man.
There's some resolution for sure with the Wounded Man.
Yeah, because we get obviously like a little flashback to him killing the lawyer who was his first victim, who was like basically blocking everything the Wounded Man and he was trying to do, and Ace Chemicals was hiding all these things and using this lawyer to do it. And what we effectively find out as Batman looks at this house in this town that's kind of weird and derelict with people who are acting strange, is that this is where the Wounded Man lived, and this town was a place that was a dumping ground for toxic chemicals, from Ace
Cryoxin.
Chemicals. Yeah, specifically, yeah, that one.
Right. Which sounds like the poison from Return of the Living Dead.
But Batman figures out that this was used as a dumping ground, and the Ace Chemicals then sold the land off to Gotham State to use and build a town, which they did. But this chemical was still in the water supply, it was in the ground, and it's affected them all. And it basically took away, because it was like a nerve agent, it took away their ability to feel pain. So everyone in this town's kind of like the Wound Man in that core concept of they can't really feel pain anymore. And it makes them kind of dangerous. It also, as we see later on, some of them have injuries that they've not treated or barely even noticed they have. Like one guy's leg is clearly broke, but he can't feel it, so he just keeps walking on it. This other guy's missing 2 fingers. Presumably he cut off his fingers when he was cooking, but just didn't realize he'd done it. So he's just missing 2 fingers now. And I actually really like what this did to the story, because what we sort of get through it as it reveals itself is that the Wound Man was trying to like seek justice for what happened here, and there's a big inciting incident in his story that leads to like how he feels so strongly, which is that his own wife died when she fell asleep, and the fire was still on, even though they can't feel warm or cold anymore. She just had the fire on out of habit, and because like one of the embers like spat out and started a fire on the rug, she didn't feel the heat when she was asleep because she couldn't feel anything anymore, and she burned to death inside this house. And he came back and found her dead body, and this is where he started to stab himself with things because he was desperate to just feel something. It hurt him so much that he couldn't, hurt him emotionally that he couldn't feel anything anymore.
Yeah, all he can feel is loss. And like, look, there's been a lot of horrific things in comic books, but the description that Waters gives of her burning alive, oh my God, it gave me like the heebie-jeebies. Like, I can't. So good on him for making Gotham and Batman creepy.
Yeah, I like this was really effective, and it kind of like builds him into a semi-sympathetic character. Of course, is that he's a victim who's been trying to like solve this, and then the interesting detail that the townsfolk here don't want it to be fixed. They actually like that they can't feel anything. They think they're immortal, effectively. And they even try beat up. They do beat up Batman, and Batman like explains why they're able to do this is because. Even though they're not as trained as fighting as he is, because they can't feel pain, because nothing he can do to them actually like makes them slow down, they will basically break their own bones like punching him so hard because they have like he talks about how the brain kind of like has a self-defense mechanism, and the pain's a warning. The pain is there to tell you you're pushing your arm too much or your leg too much. And he actually, I love that Waters does this. He brings in that old sort of like that old thing where like, oh, like a mother can lift a car to like help her child in the moment even though she shouldn't be able to, and he basically says that's like one of those rare exceptions where the adrenaline and what you like, you're so scared of what's going to happen, your body pushes itself beyond safe limits to like do something, and that's like the famous example that gets brought up for that. I really like that idea, and this idea that like, yeah, these people will just hurt themselves like punching him so hard that he does actually get beat up. I like that.
Well, yeah, they completely overwhelm him because he has no defense for this, right? He can't kick someone's knee out from under him like he could if this is regular hoods,
Yeah.
So he's completely, so basically they punch themselves out, right? When he stops fighting back, they just kind of stop, and he's kind of half conscious.
It's kind of, and it's in a weird way. Obviously, they're not as strong as like say Superman, right? Because they're still just human. But it's this idea where, unlike Superman, they won't hold back because, again, the pain's what lets them know they're punching too hard for their own sake. So it's a really interesting concept, actually. And then there's this one woman who shows up and sort of shames them all and says, "What are you doing? Like, is this what we are now?" And they all kind of turn away in shame as she then, gives Batman like the backstory on the wife. We hear it from him later, of course, in the issue. But, and of course, the other thing that happened at the end of last issue is that the Wound Man had been captured by thugs at the morgue. And it turns out by the leader of Ace Chemicals, or at the very least, the conglomerate that owns Ace Chemicals. And basically says, "Hey, you've made our job really easy. We can kill you. So I just need to pull out some of these blades, and you'll just bleed to death. This is a great." And he starts pulling this like metal rod out of his chest, and it's oozing blood out. So it's, again, super creepy. The art does a great job here, of all this. But the Wound Man is able to break out of the restraints, and I love the line, "You're the root cause of the malady." I thought that was a really nice line.
Because that also goes to the fact that he was a doctor, right?
Yeah.
And that's what you're trying to treat as the root cause. And like, that's just his entire mission now. He's in the room with the guy that is responsible, right?
Yeah. Batman does the garden. Obviously the creepy morgue doctor's got a concussion and some broken bones, so he's not in great shape. But yeah, so yeah, they're going to try and pin everything on the Wounded Man, of course. And Batman's going to have to go prove otherwise. But they get the report of the shots in the part of the town. Also, actually, just a little thing here. I really liked that Batman mentions both Burnside and the Narrows. And I was just like, I love that over the years we've sort of built like a mental map of some of these different parts of Gotham. You got Burnside, you got the Narrows, you got the Hills. That was obviously mentioned in Batgirls quite a bit. It mentions Midtown as well, which is the main kind of Times Square-y kind of area of Gotham. You know, I kind of dig that we've got like all these like districts.
What was happening in Burnside though?
A young couple having reported a man looking for the window in their sixth. Oh yeah, 10-eyed man. That's right.
Yeah, God, I love that. I love that running.
Yeah.
Water brings there, so
it's good stuff. So yeah, I mean, obviously, but because Batman found this guy's place, he knows his name. It's Hartnell is the Wounded Man's name. I'm still going to call him the Wounded Man because it's easy to remember.
Yeah, the Wound Man. Yeah.
But he's like, yeah, I've almost cured it, and this is when the boss like comes out and like the Wounded Man's killed the henchman, but this guy was slimy enough to like hide and get away from him, and Batman like doesn't just offer to help him, doesn't offer to just like bury this under the rug. Of course, he's like, hey, you killed this man's wife. You ruined this whole town. You did this to people. Because this is where we hear the story about the wife. It's when Batman's reiterating it to the villain and saying, this is your fault. You did this. Her life is on your... Yeah, I think my favorite part of this whole sequence is that page where it's the Wounded Man's found the house burned down, and he starts like picking up the rod, which is the same rod that we saw pulled out of him earlier, and nails, and we just see all these like... It's like it starts off yellow and it gradually gets more orange, the backgrounds of these panels as he's like stabbing himself with more and more items. And then of course in the foreground of the page is like what the Wounded Man actually looks like now. So
yeah, rough stuff, man. Again, sends chills.
Yeah,
just the visuals here.
It was the perfect combination between that narration, what little there is of it, and this visual. Where obviously it's in silhouette, so you're not like seeing too much gore. No. It's all implied, but it's just really, really nasty.
But when Batman shows up to the Wound Man and he's bleeding out, right? Everything is like these cool colors. It's purples, it's red, like lighter reds. And then as we ramp up to that, right? There's that page of Batman. It's like the triplicate. And as we get closer to that origin, it the color heats up. It starts to go to yellows, oranges, darker reds. Like, so just over the course of those pages, that story's being told.
Yeah, it's consistent between the two pages, where all the panels with him like stabbing himself also has that color scheme where it goes from yellow to orange at the bottom of the page. So yeah, Batman actually like grabs this boss's shoulder and explains that the shoulder is a very complex part of the body. There's lots of little moving parts. And that's why a lot of injuries from the shoulder never heal quite right, is because it's too complex to heal completely properly. And Batman grabs his shoulder and squeezes it in such a way, and at the end of again, this feels like the end of the story here in a lot of ways. He's like, hey, you'll feel something in your shoulder. When it heals, you'll feel something there for the rest of your life, and you'll remember why you feel it. So... yeah, and this is Christopher Sionis, which relation to
has to be. I don't know if it's a cousin, but his family was one of those, corrupt families of Gotham. That branch of the Sionis family was part of the makeup company. I forget the name of it, but that's why he's Black Mask.
Yeah. So I think we might be onto a new arc here next issue. It says next the voice of the tower, and they've got the bad guy behind this. The Wounded Man is been taken to hospital, and it feels like we've answered what we need. Now, I suspect some of these threads might come up again, but it does feel like we've wrapped up this story for the most part.
It definitely feels like it's going to be a series of miniseries, right? Like, I think it's 12. Is it 12, 6 or 12 issues?
I don't know.
Yeah. Let me see.
I don't know if they ever said it was a limited series.
No, but it definitely feels like this is it's solicited up to 5, so we know that much. But yeah, it definitely feels like we're going to be doing chunks of things. Yeah, right? And these are almost like little cases in Batman's past.
Yeah, it says, well, I think it's the past now, it's just present day, is it not?
No, I think it's the past, because this feels like a younger, we talked about that early on. It feels like a in-between year 1, year 2 Batman.
Oh, I've forgotten that. Maybe that was an issue 1 thing that I've just forgotten. Yeah, because when it said the voice of the tower, I assumed they meant Arkham Tower, but I could be, that's me just jumping because I'm forgetting when this is set. I mean, admittedly, the bat symbol on his chest feels old school, so yeah, it probably is an earlier story. Very, very curious to see what they would do next, but this was a great little 3-issue arc. I really like this new character. I love that he was sympathetic in the end, and the real villain was the corrupt businessman that needed to be taken down. Like, all of that worked really well. I think everything in the town was good stuff. Yeah, I think issue 1 was a great issue to introduce the creepy stuff, and then this issue was a really great payoff to explaining it all. I think the middle issue was the weakest of the 3. It wasn't bad by any means, but it was the weakest in that it didn't have either the exciting new mystery or all the cool answers. It was kind of in the middle. But as a 3-part story, which I imagine in the future most people will read in one sitting, I have very little to fault here. It was a really cool story. Yeah,
definitely. I agree with all of that. And again, Hayden Sherman's art here too, the breakdowns and the layouts and everything really, sometimes make that scene appear creepier, or add some impact with the way that things are positioned. So yeah, a lot of good stuff here.
Yeah, no, very, very good. So excellent. What are you giving Batman Dark Patterns?
I'm gonna give it an 8.5.
I'm gonna go 9. Yeah. So there you go. That's Dark Patterns. Every month at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, you can make me read a book at one of the higher tiers. I've been working through American Vampire for a long time. We're getting kind of near the end now. But this is American Vampire 1976 issue 5 that I'm talking about today. Did you read this as well, Matt?
I don't think so. I think I forgot that I was going to start. And
you read the last one when I talked about it, which is why I did read the last
one, and then I just spaced this week. So no, I am on 5 still. So I will just carefully listen, and I'll get there.
Okay. Yeah, there was a lot of more sort of like background lore in this one, because the last issue ended with them finding the giants, the big mad giants in the cave. They're looking for the first council, who kind of just show up after they try and I'd say fight, but just kind of dodge the giants and hope for the best is maybe a better thing, because they don't really know any weaknesses for these things, so they're kind of freaking out about it. But they drop Dracula's head, which they've got in a box. Travis was carrying it, and it rolls down to a hand, and then it's revealed that the first council is here. We've got a little kid Dracula looking dude. You've got one who looks a little bit more like a creature from the Black Lagoon style creature, but these are all the oldest of the monsters. And yeah, this issue largely is a bunch of exposition as these characters explain that they don't want to help humanity because humanity is a bunch of shit, basically, and America specifically is perfect for the beast. They kind of belong together for a bunch of reasons. There's a whole bit here actually which feels oddly relevant given all the political stuff going on, where Skinner himself holds up Washington's bit of, because basically this council are pissed because back in the day when America was about to form, I think the year was 1774, he talks about, the leader here talks about making a deal with Washington that if he helps fight off the English, if they help them fight off the Redcoats, that they'll have sanctuary in the US. But after the war was won and everything was over, they just didn't hear from them, and instead Washington and the powers that be in the US, the newly formed US, seemed to actually welcome in the Carpathians and welcome in the vassals of the Morning Star and basically all of the enemies. So they felt kind of scorned by this and betrayed.
History repeating itself.
Yeah.
Good God.
So they're very pissed, and they basically explain that they're not going to help. They plea, though. Skinner holds up this note and says, hey, Washington put in the declaration, like, or not even the declaration, whatever it is, but he's like, hey, people wanted Washington to run for a third term, and he wrote down a rule and said, no one should ever have a third term, because this country should never be one person's, like, thing. It should never be one person's idea of what it is. It should always keep moving on to more people. That part felt especially relevant right now.
Yeah.
But they get convinced enough to kind of like, well, I say they get convinced. I mean, later on, it's maybe kind of an implication that it's a bit of a play on the part of the council here, but they seem to get convinced enough where, like, look, you want to know how to get the blood of the light from the Isaku, and they explain that, you know, this blood's really not meant for anyone, and it'll kind of tear apart most people who try to take it. But there are a few candidates who might be able to take it. And the main candidate they bring up is the child, meaning Gus, the child that Felicia's been raising, because something to do with, like, oh, he already has like a mix of different blood, like the different vampire species or something like that. They also say that Book here might also be a candidate because the blood that was used to save him before he became a vampire was from a different vampire or something like that. But like, they explain all this stuff, and it's like, hey, we will not help you, but we will wish you luck. However, the one of the council who's got like a bit of like a seer kind of ability says that Gus will be a good candidate, and like that Gus will be free and will help save everyone. But when all the main characters leave, this character turns to the council and says, I don't like lying about what I see. So, you know, like basically saying, oh, that was a lie. Now, whether it was a lie in the sense that all of it was a lie, or is it just a case of, no, Gus will do this, but he's going to die doing it. Like, this is like a sacrifice thing where he'll help stop the beast from emerging, but that's it. So they also explain that their whole plan is to let humanity die, have the beast basically and all of its followers wear itself out by killing everyone, and then they'll step in and fight it. They'll wake up all the ancients and fight it off then, and Earth will be like a new fertile ground for whatever after that. So the end of the issue, though, kind of says that, oh, well, the beast has thought of that. Because the end of the issue is the Grey Trader shows up at this cave to take on the council. Because the council throughout the issue keeps saying that they can smell the stink of the beast on Skinner, because Skinner was with the beast for a bit, trying to become a vampire again. And they're like, oh, we can smell it on you, we can't trust you. And at the end of the issue, like, wait, that stench, the beast is still here. It's getting stronger, actually. What the hell's going on? And then they realize the big cliffhanger at the end of the issue is because the Grey Trader's there. Presumably to take out the council so that after they've killed all the humans and every other life on Earth, the council aren't there to fight them afterwards. So it feels like, even if you wanted to consider the council as this last line of defense, even if humanity falls, they're not anymore, right? They're presumably going to get taken out. I mean, admittedly, I don't know if they're actually going to get killed yet, but the implication of this cliffhanger to me feels like, yeah, they're goners. So that's a thing. Are you there, Matt? I heard your Skype noise ding out for a second. I don't think Matt can hear me. That's okay. I'll just keep talking about American Vampire. So, yeah, I mean, the thing for me here is that it's interesting lore. It's not the most interesting lore American Vampires had. You know, Snyder's done this thing repeatedly where he takes real history but kind of puts a vampire spin on it and sort of inserts the vampires into various world events, whether it's JFK or the formation of the country or whatever it is, right? There's all these things, vampires tied to conspiracy theories, yada, yada, yada. And that stuff's usually pretty fun. I think some of this is pretty decent. It does feel like Snyder has got something to say about his country here. It feels like he's trying to actually say something. And by the time this came out, after 2020, you know, America had been through a lot of things by that point. So it feels like whether or not he'd planned it all from the start to eventually say some of these things, or if this was something that had kind of formed out of like the history he was living through as he was writing the book over the, because I mean this book was basically around for a decade in some form or another since it started. So lot of thoughts on his mind probably, and I do like how some of that seeps in here. But I will say, as far as like the exposition dumps go in this book, I would say that this has not been my favorite one. Like there was definitely ones like near the start of this run or in the last miniseries where how it kind of like built up this idea that the Cold War was around kind of maybe like annihilating this beast if it ever rises, and that nuclear war is like a thing that's something that might happen as a result of that rather than anything else, which is also kind of something else that is hinted at here. I can't remember the character's name, but the character who's like a sort of robot looking, or he's got like a robot mask anyway, who disguises himself as other people. He's like infiltrated like an Air Force base to try and see what they're up to, and we basically they're doing drills for what will happen if like nuclear war starts. Like, oh, like we'll launch 9 missiles and then we've got 3 minutes to prepare and whatever. But it's basically like this doomsday kind of like, it feels like we're going there. And the character like takes off the mask, gets into the car and says, "Damn Felicia, what have you done?" So I'd love to remember this character's name. I remember him being around on the team for previous arcs, but yeah. So basically, yeah, it's like things are heating up, and like nukes might be set off just to try and take care of this beast if it ever happens. That said, though, we also know the president is evil and is working with Bixby, who's at the White House right now. So we get some more of that stuff. In fact, that's actually just kind of mostly there to tease the ending of this issue, because Bixby's out in the White House garden and he's looking for the Grey Trader again. Because remember, he had that scene last issue where the Grey Trader kind of like came to him and spoke to him in his mother's voice and like embraced him and all that. The president kind of stumbles out after him and says he's not here anymore. Like, I know you're looking for him, but he's gone. He's off doing something bad, probably to bad people. And it's basically just like a little hint. Okay, where is he then? So it's just like a little tease that pays off, and 2 pages later when we find out that he's with the council. And not only that I mean, the final page is probably my favorite art of the whole book, because it's like the Grey Trader standing in like super dark, shadowy lighting at this entrance to this sort of cave area in the mountain, and there's just all these little red dots behind him, which are eyes. So he's got like an army of like his monster of the tongue or whatever with him for this. So, which is why I think the council are as good as dead. So yeah, it's a pretty decent issue. Some of the things it brings up are exciting. It feels like it's got something to say. But it is very much like we're going to stand and do a big exposition dump for the most part. There's a couple of funny bits though. I do appreciate there's a couple of times where the Grey Council, or sorry, the not Grey Council, just the Ancient Council, when they say, "Hey, one of you has to die," Skinner's like, "I nominate Booker." So there's a kind of running joke where he says that a couple of times, where he's like, "Hey, one of us is probably going to die. I nominate Book." So that's funny. I don't know. I got a chuckle out of that. I'd probably give this like a 7.5 out of 10 though. I think it just falls a little bit short of being great, because it does feel like we're just standing around doing a big exposition dump for the most part. So, so not quite great. Been better issues, but what it sets up is pretty exciting. So there you go. That is American Vampire 1976 issue 5, which will take us on to the final part of the show, which is where we pick our favorite stuff of the week, favorite panel / moment, favorite cover, favorite art, and of course top 5 books. So Matt, what is your panel / moment of the week?
So let's see. There's some good ones in Batman Dark Patterns. I also liked in Batman and Robin. But there's a part of me that will always fall for a good Green Lantern bit. And so I'd have to say the fight with the Tamarinian goddess, right? And John's using the straitjacket, and the fallout from that with Sinestro talking to the Tamarinian. That was good. But yeah, I'll have that. I'll have John using the straitjacket.
Yeah, I think for me it's got to be the the moment where the Wounded Man becomes the Wounded Man. It has to be that. It has to be him like picking up just things that are lying around and stabbing himself, just trying to feel something. It's dark, it's grisly, the art's gorgeous in the way that it presents it. It kind of, there's a couple of other great moments this week, don't get me wrong. Like the bat signal in Absolute Batman was definitely a contender, as well as a few other moments, but I think that has to be it. A lot of good moments this week, to be fair, so no complaints on that front. So, all right, cover of the week. I didn't get too much of a chance to look, but I'm looking at them now. There's a pretty nice Batman and Robin variant by Ariel Olivetti, which is Batman, just Batman and Robin standing there, really, but it's just got such a beautiful kind of painted and shaded look to it that I quite like. So that could be potentially my pick. I'm just having a quick glance at some of the others. Oh, the variant on Dark Patterns is very nice and shadowy and moody. It's got like a sort of a cream background, but then it's just sort of this hard, like almost like charcoal style, with like just Batman facing down. A
pile of nails.
Yeah, a pile of nails. Yeah, it's just really atmospheric and cool. So I'll give a shout out to that. Yeah, I think those are the main ones that I would like to point out. There's some covers that are almost there, but the art's just a little bit off for me. Like there's a cover to Green Lantern Corps, which is Kyle and Jessica, which is my two favorite Green Lanterns, which I should love, but just the art's just a little bit, just not quite hitting it.
Off.
It's just not quite hitting it for me. So that's a bit of a shame. I think if I'm picking something though, I'll probably go. It's either one of those. Yeah, I'll probably go with the Dark Patterns variant. I think that one's just captured my eye just a little touch more. What are you going with?
That was good. All right, so I do like the main Batman and Robin cover. It's super dark. You have to follow the House of Waynes with Memento there in the corner, and there is a Aquaman variant done by Marcio Takara. Who we all know how much I love the art from Ivy, but it's got Mira. So again, redhead in green, kind of my thing, right? But the main drawback on there, so she's underwater and there's some fish swimming in front of her. The fish seem awkwardly placed, like they don't, they're just kind of floating around. It kind of messed up the composition a little bit. So mine's gonna be the main Green Lantern's Green Lantern Corps cover. It's got all of our favorite lanterns here. It's very simple. And it's got them on the white background, so the green really pops. But yeah, that's mine.
All right. Art of the week.
Yeah, so this came down to me between Hayden Sherman for Dark Patterns and the team for Batman and Robin, right? And I think they're both strong in their own way. However, I think some of the storytelling devices in Batman and Robin edge it out just a little bit.
Okay.
So that's going to be mine.
Yeah, I mean, it is close there. I think Dragotta is also worth mentioning for Absolute Batman, but I think I got to go with Sherman for Dark Patterns. It just, as far as sequences go, it definitely has the most that stuck out in my mind from reading it, so I'm going to pick that. All right, Matt, top 5 books.
All right, so number 1 is going to be Batman and Robin. 2 is Green Lantern Corps. 3 is Dark Patterns. 4 is Batman, and 5, or Absolute Batman, and 5 is Aquaman.
All right, number 1 is Batman Dark Patterns. Number 2 is... I had a lot of really similar rated books here. I'm going to have to think about this. Number 2, I'm going to say Batman and Robin. Number 3, I'll say Absolute Batman. 4, Green Lantern Corps. But 2, 3, and 4 are all very close there, to be honest. And then 5 is Aquaman, which I did ultimately think was better than Action Comics. But yeah. Yeah, I think that's where I'll go. So I'll tell you what's coming next week from DC Comics. We have Nightwing 123. We have Batman Superman World's Finest 36. Wonder Woman 18, Titans 20, The New Gods issue 3, Batman and Robin Year 1 issue 5, Catwoman 73, Zatanna issue 1, The Question All Along the Watchtower issue 4, Challengers of the Unknown issue 3, Jenny Spark 7, DC Horror Presents Creature Commandos issue 5, a Wayne Family Adventures issue, and then some we also have Maelstone Universe Shadow Cabinet 4 as well, and then we have some reprints and facsimiles and your usual like stuff to round out things. So a little bit of a similar size week for me again next week, because I dropped Question, so that's fine by me. We'll probably have solicits next week, so that's okay.
Yeah. Well, we'll see if I have time for Titans, but I'm sticking with Question. So
are you considering Titans? Are we?
Oh, so I got caught up. I thought we talked about that.
I don't know if we did, but that's cool.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see where we are. But yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe I'll try Zatanna. I'll admit I'm not really feeling like what I've seen of it, even though Jamal Campbell's obviously got very nice art. I'm not in love with what I've seen.
Gotcha.
So I don't know. I assume you're trying it.
Oh yeah, Zatanna. Come on. Come on.
All right. Just
the only piece of commissioned art that I've ever had done at a con is of Zatanna. So yes, of course.
All right, good to know. But yeah, that's what's coming next week from DC Comics. So that'll pretty much bring an end to the show. So thank you very much for joining us. You can, let us know what you thought of the books in the comments. If you're on YouTube, like, subscribe on there as well. Helps out a bunch. Share out the podcast, and of course you can support everything over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and help keep the show coming that way. Plus get some bonus content for all the other stuff that is done in MailFuzz movies and MailFuzz TV, if you're interested in checking any of that out. But yeah, that is the show. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep reading DC Comics, and remember to never get lost in the Speed Force.